Welcome! In this video, we'll understand what's new in the latest version of the Godot AdMob plugin and how to use it. The new features are Android v2 architecture, automatic installation, updated sample interface, and bug fixes. This tutorial will be quick so you can pause and follow along little by little. Let's start with a blank project. Let's create it now and enter the desired name and render. The render can be anyone as it doesn't interfere with the plugin. To obtain the plugin, let's go for the easiest and recommended way, AssetLib. You need to search for AdMob and remember to check the publisher as it should be poing.studios. Warning: if you have more than one AdMob plugin in your project because you try using another one, delete the other and keep only the one from poing.studios. Otherwise, you may have problems when building or testing the ads. Okay, now we have the plugin downloaded. It's located in the add-ons folder. It is highly recommended that before testing AdMob with your real IDs, you always test first with the main.tscn scene in the plugin sample folder. To do this, set the scene as the main scene in your project so you can test it. Since this is a test project, it's not configured to render this scene correctly, so I'm going to make some modifications to the project settings. Let's modify the width and height to make it portrait. Remember that this is optional, just to better visualize this scene. If the scene isn't framed correctly, select the main node from the scene, go to Anchor Preset, and select Full Rect. Okay, let's run it locally just to see if we can see the scene clearly. It looks good, but remember AdMob stands for Mobile Ads, so it's impossible to run the ads on your computer. Now we're going to activate the plugin. We just downloaded it, but we need to tell Godot that this plugin needs to be active. Activate it in Project Settings, Plugins, and enable AdMob. The plugin has now downloaded and installed the Android and iOS versions correctly. As you can see, it was successful for both. For iOS, there's nothing to be done for now. For Android, there's a button that allows you to open the config.gd file. Since the architecture of the Android plugin in Godot has changed, this script will serve as the configuration file. We'll talk about that later, but let's open the project's GitHub page for now. Go to Project, Tools, AdMob Manager, then GitHub. This is the main repository for the project. If possible, we would appreciate it if you could give us a star rating and also contribute through PayPal, Ko-Fi, or Patreon, as this helps us continue developing the plugin. We greatly appreciate your help. In addition to this repository, we have two more, one for Android and one for iOS. They contain native code and their README is detailed. But going back to the main repository, its README contains some basic instructions such as the installation, which we have already done through the Godot asset library. Also, how to install manually and what happens after installation. And how to actually use the plugin with small examples, such as initialization, loading of banner ads, interstitial ads, among others. There is additional documentation included with the plugin. If you're interested, it can be found at addons/admob/docs/architecture. The documentation is for those interested in learning how the plugin works, as it's somewhat complex. This is the general documentation, showing how the plugin communicates with other repositories and also with Android and iOS. This documentation explains how the plugin lifecycle works, including the new automatic download and installation features. Okay, let's move on to the main documentation now. You should open this documentation quite often. You can open a documentation via the README, or through the link at the top of the repository. This is the documentation. It shows in detail how to use it. At the top, there's also a link to the Google documentation. For the prerequisites, pay attention to the supported versions of Android, iOS, and Godot. This section is for downloads, which you can download from GitHub, Asset Library, or the source code. We've already done that. We've already searched, downloaded, installed, and activated it. It also explains that after activation, the plugin for Android and iOS will download and install automatically. This section is typically not required, as the plugin handles libraries automatically. Only follow these steps if the automatic download failed or you need a specific legacy version. Just to demonstrate, let's do this if necessary. Go to Project, Tools, AdMob Manager, Android or iOS, download and install. Downloaded and installed successfully for Android. Let's go to iOS. both successfully. In case of any error, there is a link below for you to try downloading. Now let's move on to the final part, the export. Let's start with Android. It's quite simple. First, you need to install the Android build template. This is the official Godot link, please read carefully. You need to configure the export for Android, which requires Java, etc. We won't cover that part. You need to install the Godot build template in the project menu. Let's do that. Okay, done. Also, when exporting, you need to enable Use Gradle Build. Let's do that in Project Export. We've activated it, but you may notice an error that will prevent our export. We'll resolve that now. Activate and restart. Sometimes Godot gives this error on my Mac when restarting. Let's ignore it. Let's go back to the documentation to see what's missing. When you export, you need to enter your actual AdMob app ID. This link explains how to obtain it. You need to go to the AdMob website, go to Apps, view all apps, locate your application, and click the button to copy it. Once you have obtained your app ID, you need to change it to config.gdat at this address. Find and open the file, and change it as we're testing it. I'm not going to change it. Please note that there is an app ID and an add unit ID. This section explains the difference. The app ID is separated by a tilde, and the add unit ID is separated by a slash. If you have mediation, you also need to set the mediations you want in your application to true. This tutorial won't explain this, so we'll leave it as false. Okay, let's move on to the export. Remember to set Use Gradle Build to true. Exporting is simple. Click Export and export to any location, although it's recommended to export outside of the project. It's exporting now. It might take a while, especially the first time because of the Gradle build. Success. To test, you can send the.apk to your phone or simulator. But I have Android, I'll test it with that via remote debug. Okay, it's running. This is my phone screen. You might notice some errors in the output, but that's normal if you set the mediations to false. Let's open the banner and also adjust its position. We will also load, open, and destroy an interstitial. You can find out the startup status, among other things. That's it for Android, now let's move on to iOS. For iOS, we will select iOS in Export. If you are using mediation, within this directory, open the file poeng.godot admobads.gdip. Read the instructions carefully, we won't cover that in this tutorial, but you will need to modify the SKA network items. The one I selected is mandatory. You can also follow this link for more details. To export, you need to include the GAD application identifier from your AdMob app ID. Let's take a look. Importantly, in order to export, at least AdMob needs to be enabled. Sure, if you have any mediation options, activate them. This is the GAD application identifier. To find it, you can follow this guide at this link. It's the same way Android needs to be. Again, pay attention to the difference between App ID and Ad Unit ID. Okay, to export, we'll put any data in these fields, but remember to enter the real data when exporting. To export, we'll export to a folder outside the project root as usual. Let's wait. Please note that errors are normal, as exporting the project with the AdMob plugin is different because it depends on CocoaPods. When you export, go to your project folder, then to iOS/plugin/poing Godot AdMob/scripts. Just like this step. Once you're in that folder, open the terminal there. We'll need to run a few commands. You can copy them here. But it can also be within AdMob Manager. Once you have the command, run it in the terminal. This command will convert the project to support CocoaPods and also install the AdMob dependencies. From now on, run .xx workspace in the root of the project export. Open that file. Pay attention to the extension. The next step will be to add the frameworks. Go to the Target section of your application, then to General, Frameworks, Libraries, and Embedded Content, and add all pods in that section except the dot bundle. We're also going to switch to iOS 16. Here I am selecting the frameworks, except for the dot bundle. Select all frameworks and set them to Do Not Embed. If you are dealing with a Swift force load error, follow these simple steps. Some users have reported experiencing this issue on GitHub. You can learn more at this link. I don't have this problem, but to be sure, let's do it. To solve it, create any file with the .swift extension. Like this one, untitled.swift. Xcode will ask if you want to create the bridging header, accept, and then the build will proceed normally. At this point, you can run the project on your mobile phone or simulator. I will export it to the simulator. But my computer is Intel, and it has some problems exporting to the simulator. To solve this, I follow these steps. You can learn more about this problem at this link. To resolve this, go to your Xcode project and search for your project's target. Go to Build Settings. In Architecture, set as Standard Architecture, set the excluded architecture to ARM64 and i386. With this, my computer can only run the game from my processor, x64 Intel, but if you have an M chip, these steps shouldn't be necessary. I'll select iPhone Air and run. This takes time, especially on the first build. Here we are, fully functional. Let's do the same as Android. Load the banner, adjust its position, and destroy it. Also including interstitial, load, display, and destroy. Thanks for watching. All the links will be in the description.